I'm Jeremiah Owyang, industry analyst at Altimeter Group. And I'm excited to explore today's theme about being faster than real time. Now, one of the things about being faster than real time is the ability to do anticipation. And I'm waiting to anticipate for the slides to come up. Anticipation has traditionally been very difficult for companies to do in the technology space. Let me pull out a few quotes that have expressed how difficult this one is. I am dubious that Amazon will ever generate the huge profits that their stock prices suggest. Or, remote shopping, while entirely feasible, will flop because women want to get out of the house, like to handle merchandise, and like to change their minds. A quote in 1966 about e-commerce. And then recently, there is no chance the iPhone is going to get any significant market share. One other prediction in anticipation is the end of the world, which will be over at the next LeWeb in Paris, apparently. So anticipation and predicting and being faster than real time is not easy. And in fact, we think that companies that can map their customer journeys in what we call the hot paths, and I'll explain what that is, have the opportunity to anticipate. Anticipation is a competitive edge. In fact, sports players that are trained in experiences, they can anticipate where the ball is, not because they have just lightning reflexes, but because they've seen the patterns so many times. They know where the ball is going to be. They can read the movement, and their eyes stay focused rather than wildly looking around. Anticipation requires a lot of experience, but also understanding what is in play. Now, today, there might be one ball in play. So I have good news, but the bad news is when it comes to companies trying to connect with their customers, there's going to be a lot of balls in play. And that's both an opportunity because you can start to map and capture all those patterns, but it's also a threat if you don't get ahead of this now. Now, the way we like to think about this is breaking it down into concrete little pieces. I'm here to show you how the ball is moving when companies are connecting to their customers now. And I'm going to show you some basic math. The first thing is the number of sources of information that customers, whether it's B2B or B2C, have. And looking at top left to the right, it's press, media, analysts. Then on the bottom, you see the crowd or people that you actually know are now influencing your journey. So that's 5. Hold that number in your head. Multiply that by the number of channels. Our next research report is on the integration of paid, owned, and earned, coming together what we call converged media. But right now, they're primarily separate channels. So those are 3 separate channels that you can see. Hold that number in your head. We're going to multiply these. And then next is the number of screens. I'm just looking in this audience right now, and I see at least 3 screens. He's got his mobile device up. He's got his laptop. Somebody was taking pictures with a tablet. Now, if you're at home, you also add the TV. And I had drinks last night with folks Bradley from Google, and we're anticipating yet a new form of a screen coming, Google Glass, which is our glasses. So let's do the math. That's 5 times 3 times 75. Those are the 75 different permutations that customers have to make choices in their journey. And your job is to map that. But it's never just one particular piece. There are 7 layers, 7 phases that customers go through, whether it's B2B or B2C. Awareness, consideration, intent, point of purchase, support, loyalty, and advocacy. So you multiply that by those 7, and here's all the options that you actually have to start to map out. 525. Then it gets even more complicated because you have to do this by every single product type, persona, and geography. Wow. That's a lot. But if you listen carefully to the technologists that have been on stage today, they're talking about how to map this information, how to make sense of it, and eventually put it together and start to anticipate and be faster than real time. Companies like Target in the United States were putting together behavioral information to actually find out and anticipate what customers wanted. Have you heard this story? This one's a little shocking. Target actually anticipated that a customer needed certain types of products, and they kept on sending ads to her home about her being pregnant. Well, her dad wasn't unsure why was this actually happening, and he contacted Target and said, "Why are you sending me these ads?" In reality, they looked at her buying behavior and found out she was pregnant. So therefore, her dad learned through Target. Target is starting to anticipate what customers want by looking at all this information and finding that hot path. Now, when Loïc and I chatted about what should the theme be for LeWeb, these are 3 research themes that we see at Altimeter, and we have time to explore just 2 out of 3, given the limited time that we have today, but you can check out our website to find more. We'll look at the dynamic customer journey. I'll define, explore it, and give you real examples of what companies are doing today. And then we'll take a look at the sentient world, when everything inanimate around us becomes alive. Let me tell you a story. A few weeks ago, I was in Times Square, and I had a mission to count every logo from a fixed position. Now, I had my coffee in the morning, and it was Sunday morning. There wasn't a lot of people around, a lot of distractions. And I sat down, and I tried to do that, and within just a few seconds, I gave up. Why? Because there are so many digital screens everywhere. It's impossible to even track those because they're constantly changing. I counted at least 15 digital screens which are constantly changing. Now, this is what we call the dynamic customer journey. And we think wherever customers go, they have so many choices. This same Times Square experience will also be in the living room or in the retail store. If you have a mobile device in your hand, you have now the power to quickly change and find a different hot path. The opposite of a dynamic customer is a static and predictable one. And we think that the number of options is only going to increase over time. So we define this dynamic customer journey as a question around how should inflexible organizations synchronize with this changing customer. Let's start with just one aspect, and this is photos. Here's a fact. 250 million photos are uploaded to Facebook each day. That's equivalent to, if you printed them out using HP printers, it would be over 80 Eiffel Towers of photos per day. So how can companies, this vast amount of information that's coming, take advantage of just photos? I'll show you 2 examples to make it real. Tesco, a local retail store, also deployed in South Korea, in Seoul. And this is a fantastic, amazing case study in which they put up these advertisements inside of the subway. And using your mobile device, you can take pictures of using QR codes and fill up your shopping cart. By the time you got on the subway and you got back to your location, that food could be ordered and actually sent to your home. So this is transcending a lot of different angles in the dynamic customer journey, from real world to mobile device to internet, to photos, from the point of intention to the mobile shopper. They're using all of these converging points to figure out what is their use case, and they have business metrics to back it up. You can learn more on the slides. Now back to Times Square. This is American Eagle, an apparel company, and they did something interesting to combine both mobile display ads and also paid, which is ads, owned corporate content, and earned content. Now, if you've been to Times Square, you'll see this large digital screen of American Eagle, and they got their normal ads. But you can go inside, go into the back area where there's a dressing room, and take a picture. And your picture will show up on that screen, which has been paid for them, and it's owned by them, but it's using consumer-generated media, and it's also displayed online. So they're converging both paid, owned, and earned, both on digital screens as well as in the real world, all coming together using just photos. Now, that's just 2 examples around the space, but there's a number of questions this is going to be raised in our research, and questions you must answer, whether you're a technologist or a brand or an agency. What are the new sources of information that you actually have to track, and which one of them actually are going to matter? We got some information from Eloqua, and they said that only 5% of companies have started to map this dynamic customer journey. Everybody's doing it manually, 95% of their findings. 2, how is this going to change the experience as it shifts to different screens? A tablet experience is very different than a laptop one. many companies haven't fully figured out those changes. We just published a report on that topic, enterprise and enterprise mobility. And 3, if we can actually find this hot path, do advertisements even matter? Because if I understand the true hot path of customers and can serve up contextual information when they need it, it's actually relevant information, no longer disruptions. So whoever can crack this code disrupts the advertising revenue stream. The third theme, we don't have time to do the second one, which looks inside of companies, called adaptive organization. But let's talk about the sentient world. The question we pose in our research is, who's smarter? Today's college graduate or your refrigerator? Or tomorrow's refrigerator? We've interviewed companies like Samsung, LG, Ford, Toyota, GM, and they just think that these appliances are just a few quarters away from being smarter than a college graduate. Now, Jeremiah, how would you measure that? Well, there's a couple ways you could do that. Who can clean up after themselves? Who can understand their energy footprint? And if you're a fridge, who can put food on the table for the next week? And these internet-enabled devices are starting to do this right now, and it's just coming around the bend. Well, this world, which we call the sentient world, means everything around us is alive and full of information. But in order to approach this one is 3 to 5 years out for many companies to adopt, requires us to have a different approach on how we look at this. This picture here of the Mona Lisa is a beautiful rendition of a realism of a real woman, right? That's what a woman looks like. But also, this is what a woman looks like when you look at it from different angles and you break it into it. So approaching this world requires us to look at the world around us in a very different way. Let me show you a few examples. This is a movie by Will Ferrell where everything around him started to emit data. Stranger than fiction. Started with his body. You guys just saw Pebble, right? Pebble's a way of getting your body API. Nike's doing things as well. Now, when we see the world, take, for example, GE's moodometer, you can take a picture of any room, and using their applications, you can start to change the lighting in the actual room and adjust the mood. And then you can purchase those products and change these things. So this is applying sentience on top of the real world using augmented reality technologies. Well, it also applies to our bodies. LeWeb has actually been one of the forerunners in the space who's been measuring his body API. You can actually watch him on his runs using Runkeeper. And it's not limited to LeWeb, but also to infants. Smart pajamas measure the way that your infant might move and their heat, and it gives a lot of opportunities to understand how your baby's actually performing. So body data is emerging inside of us. Now, Thursday, I'm going to this restaurant here in London, Inamo. And apparently, when you put different types of food on the table using Microsoft Surface, the surface around it, which is all digital, changes to match the type of genre of the food. So the surroundings are changing all around us, and it's becoming intelligent, including the menus on the table. And then Google, of course, is testing Project Glass, which we hope to hear some about in the next few months as they roll this out. So when it comes to the sentient world, to close this part out, the questions that we must answer are, if everything emits data, where's the signal? There's 3 components to making sentient world work. One is data is emitted from inanimate objects. 2 is something in the cloud or a network or networks is harvesting that information. And 3, this part's missing, new information architecture emerges. A new intelligence emerges that can sort all this out. 1 and 2 are already starting to happen. 3, we're not seeing it yet. And next, as humans start to develop relationships with inanimate objects, this changes the game completely. We might start talking to our cars instead of humans. And in this final phase, we think that humans themselves become disrupted because boardrooms or the Amazon inventory can be moved around by robots. We, as humans, may not be needed. So we're going to find out which companies will benefit from this and profit from this upcoming trend on being faster than real time. So to close things out, Being able to read and anticipate the game is a key competitive advantage. But you'll have to map your customer journey and know about the incoming balls as the world becomes sentient around us, and put all these things together. Use these themes, the dynamic customer journey, the sentient world. Check out our open research reports at altimetergroup.com, and I look forward to engaging with you more. Thanks a lot. I'm Jeremiah.